Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Professionals Unplugged. Join me for another candid conversation about work. I'm Inga Hebden, your host and owner of Medea International. So, I'm an executive coach, and my mission is to help people improve their impact and success, especially by helping leaders elevate the so-called executive presence. And with me today, I have two wonderful guests. I have Jan Barlow. She is a thought disruptor, facilitator of change, and founder of the nonprofit organization Better Job Fit, a community of resources to help people reimagine work and life whilst raising workforce awareness. And Dave Nordel, military transition coach, motivational speaker, and leadership coach. After 30 years of active military service and retired Commander Chief Master Sergeant, he's a passionate advocate for veteran empowerment. Thanks so much for being here and joining me on a little bit of a special occasion for me. So today is my birthday, and so I thought, what a great occasion to celebrate it in a little bit of a different way. So usually I'm not really that fussed about celebrating my birthday, but husband is away on a business trip, and I thought, whilst I was reflecting, why am I not celebrating? Or why am I not into celebrating? And what's a good thing about celebrating? I thought, why not open this up and have a bit of a conversation about it? So I'm really happy that you guys are here to brainstorm and have a conversation and a chat and hopefully share some funny stories when it comes to celebrating life events. And that can be anything from birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, things like that, and successes at work, right? Because often enough we don't stop. We achieve something, it feels like ticking a box, and then we move on to the next thing without actually, not even patting ourselves on the shoulder. So I thought, let's get together and chat about the benefits of the celebrating those kind of things.
I got to tell you, when you talked about celebrating birthdays, the first thing that comes to my mind, my husband and I, we share birthdays a day apart, 2 days apart. His is the
Wow.
27th and mine's the 27th and his is the 29th. And we always make it a big deal. Like we celebrate that time together with a special trip. You know, it's really something nice, that we can do together, but it also, we celebrate our birthdays, right? And people say, oh, well, you know, do you just give one gift or, no, we each have separate gifts, right? And we'll have even separate
Oh, good.
parties with friends, right? It's just something nice that we make a conscious decision that time is set to celebrate our birthdays. Like that's really a big deal for us. And so I really resonated with you, Inga, when you shared once we check off the box of a success and say we accomplished something, we move on to the next. I really can appreciate that. And so, in comparison, when I think of me, I probably need to be more conscious of even the small successes. Like at the end of the
Mm.
day, like I got everything completed on my my to-do list. Like for me with ADHD, that can be a challenge. So, checking off the box, it needs to be more of a conscious act, right? And to your point, acknowledging those successes in a certain way instead of just, okay, next, next, next.
Yeah, hey Inga, thanks for having me from the middle of nowhere, Montana. And happy birthday, and you should
Thank you.
celebrate that. And it's kind of ironic, 30 years in the military, I spent a lot of birthdays away from home. So your husband not being there, my empathy level's a little lower than most because I've done
I
that.
love
So I
that.
know I know
That's
that
all right.
that that's always a possibility. But you remember I had sent you a blog I wrote, and I actually wrote a chapter in one of my books about this specifically because I like to emphasize things that I'm terrible at. And so I have been, through my leadership journey, I have been that monster who get the job done, hit the home run, on to the next game, drive right through it, don't stop. And I was in I was in Guam. I'm a nurse. I grew up in medicine, military medicine, and civilian medicine. And I was in Guam, and we had done really, really well on an inspection. And I remember the chief nurse, who was also the commander. She said to me, she goes, "I'm going to get some ice cream, and we're going to put it on a cart, and we're going to drive the ice cream around the building, and we're going to give people ice cream." And I said, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life." I said, "I have stuff to do. I've got things to do. I don't have an hour and a half or 2 hours to go, run around BSing with people and feeding them ice cream." Well, I lost out on that, so I was pulled in tow to go give the ice cream. And I'll tell you, everything predicated on the fact that I think people should celebrate, and the life changing moment for me as a leader was at the end of that 2 hours with the ice cream. Because actually, people are waiting. People are waiting to be celebrated.
Yeah.
And when you miss it, it's a big deal, and it goes into their memory bank. And so just the simple things, remembering people's birthdays or anniversaries, or somebody's got something big coming up, to stop and to do that. So making a cake and taking some, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
to
And and
work, and
and
that
and you're right.
matters.
An ice cream, it doesn't sound like much, and it's not a huge cost, right? But the gesture alone, by saying, well, in particular when you're the leader of a team, if you then just say, I remembered, it's not just any day today, at least for one person in our team. Just remembering that and rewarding or acknowledging that this is something different. That gesture alone does a lot when it comes to, team bonding, if you will, right? And it changes the entire dynamic, because all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, hang on. And then, the well wishes are coming in, and people feel really good about it. And then it changes, even if it's just for that one day, it changes the entire atmosphere within that team. And it can kind of, if there's a stressful time, it can release some of that stress people are feeling, right?
You were talking, Inge,
Well, when
when
people,
we talk about the successes, like in happy, and there's also another side to that, and it just reminded me, we have a team member in marketing, and his daughter is graduating college, and she's going away to school, and it's his oldest, and so he's got 4 kids. And I sent her congratulations card, graduation card with a Starbucks cards in it, right? But then I called him and I asked him, how are you doing? I said, first of all, congratulations on Oriana graduating. That's just something to be so proud of. She got accepted to FSU. I said, but how are you doing? And he smiled and he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, she's your first to go off to school. Your little separation, you must be, she's your daughter. So you must be a
Mm,
little, tense about it, nervous about it. I mean, it's transition for you. Now there's 3 kids at home, not 4. So that bond, family bond, there's a bittersweetness celebrating her transition of her success of moving on to the next level of her growth and expansion. But now everybody else is affected by change, right? And our brain is wired to resist change.
yeah.
So there's that bittersweet side of success or celebration, like, oh, and I think just by acknowledging that, to your point, Inga, it really was important to him as well. He said, well, Jan, thank you for bringing that up, because I'll be honest, I'm a little sad, and it's affected our family. The kids are, they're just now excited about it for her, but now that she's not here, they're wondering, like, you can see that they're affected by that change as well. So to your point, both of your points, to stop and acknowledge others, both the celebration but also change of that success and celebration of an event,
it's
right?
about caring, right?
Yeah.
When people know you care, it's a game changer. And you want to draw the corollary back to leadership or back to business and the things that you talk about in core. People are turning over their jobs at a rapid rate, and
Yeah.
employers are having a huge time with retention. And I will tell you, people will trade off $1 an hour for an
That's
employer that actually
yeah.
genuinely cares.
Yeah. No,
And when you when you do these kind of things, I mean that solidifies. You got to do it genuinely.
Oh yeah,
Not all of us have the
absolutely. If
art
it's
of
if
being.
it's faked, if it's faked, I'd rather not get any. I'd rather not get any. But absolutely, it. I mean, me as well. I remember. I mean, it's a while back. My husband and I, we've been together for a long time, but we got married years after we got together. So it's not that long ago that we did get married. And I remember my boss at the time. So I took some, well, obviously some time off after the wedding. My boss at the time, he didn't even ask. To this day, he still hasn't said, "Oh, congratulations to you, Mary. How was it?" And I just thought,
Mm,
what a dot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just told me, okay, there's so many things wrong with me and the relationship with my with my boss
It's
at
so
the time.
broken.
And I
It's
just thought,
so broken.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's so broken, and the cracks started to appearing more and more after that. But yeah, because it is important, and so I'm curious, what are the kind of things you would celebrate in a work environment?
I mean, currently, like we celebrate with our teams besides birthdays, family events, anniversaries, kids' graduation. I mean, when we know, right? When we say, hey, because in the beginning of all of our team meetings or even one to one meetings, I'm sorry, but I always got to spend 5 to 10 minutes and exchanging of what's going on with you. How are you doing? Like, what's exciting? Like, what do we need to celebrate today? What are the recent successes that we need to talk about? You
Mm,
know, I want to check in. I need that. Okay. I need to feel that connection before we start talking about what we got to get accomplished. I need to feel connected to the people that I'm working with and collaborating
right.
with, because that's just me. I need that because it feeds me. But I know also how that has helped grow better job fit in our relationships with all our brands and the work that we do with our community. So it just becomes a force multiplier, because it starts with us as leaders, as
Yeah.
individuals. So to me, it's all about relationship. I think, and I think, we've all three of us have shared together that we're leaving this industrial revolution mindset of work and relationship, and we have got to jump into the human
Yeah.
side of work, of what work and life. There's no separate work and life anymore. I mean, COVID showed us that.
No.
So this old, we call it a legacy mindset of separate work and life, and what that's not true anymore.
Let me piggyback on Jan's because I totally agree with Jan. I mean, she's spot on, but let me piggyback on that and just to add, the old way or the industrial mindset was to celebrate the old or the accomplished, the retirement, the gold watch.
Mm,
We never separate the new and the revolution, right? So when you come up with the idea and everybody decides that you're gonna do something together, celebrate right then. Start celebrating the fact that you made a decision. Start celebrating the fact that you came together as a team. Start celebrating the fact that it belongs to us and not the institution of the people. And when new people show up, have a party.
yeah.
So true.
So
Have a
why don't
party
we
and
do
just
that
say,
enough? What do you think? Why don't
yeah,
we do that enough?
Because we're not
be, be,
integrating that as a habit. When you talk about, it's again this legacy mindset. I mean, COVID just really shook everything up, right? Well, now we have to really one by one have to start integrating this new human element into, we have to take business
Mm,
organizations from this industrial revolution mindset to the human knowledge revolution, right? But it
mm,
changes, is our brains wired to resist change. You're going to, what we're seeing are organizations that get it, there's a gap. You can see a significant gap. Old mindset. I mean, we still talk to people that are businesses that are still thinking pre-COVID. Like they still operate their business like COVID never happened. I mean, we had a major global human behavior shift on a quantum level. People's values,
Yeah.
people's right feelings of themselves and others. Like why would we not do something different, right? But it just takes, it's going to be a while before it starts getting integrated into mainstream. I think it starts with us and coming together with
You
these
know,
conversations, right? I think it's important.
Hmm.
Inga, just for your listeners and and for conversation, if you think I think the biggest roadblock to what Jan just described is the fact that one of the most boring things in the organization that exists are policies, procedures, checklists, and guidance regulations. And nobody and right. And so nobody wants to revisit it, right? Because they feel like it's a time waste. But if an organization slowed down long enough to build in some of these modalities that Jan just described into their policies and procedures, they would become cultural and institutionalized, and the return on investment is rather quick. They would set them, they immediately would be set aside from their competitors and their
Yeah.
peers in this human revolution of a new look on how we manage workforce and integrate people.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because if you think about it, people are so thrilled about when they have a really good onboarding experience, right? When they come into the office first time around, just as an example, and you see those posts even on LinkedIn, they take a picture of their welcoming gifts and how people treated them. And so I love it when I see this, because it sends a message, right? Hey, hang on a minute, that organization is really taking a moment to acknowledge, hey, here's somebody new, let's celebrate that. And you're absolutely, both of you absolutely spot on. It's the impact it has on how motivated an individual actually feels when they have a different type of welcoming, and when people feel acknowledged and cared about, and that includes that they, yeah, get celebrated, their successes are getting celebrated, productivity goes up, right?
Yeah, let me share a story I think you'll appreciate. So, Kunsan, Korea is probably one of the most remote and isolated assignments that you can get in the Air Force or in the military.
Mm.
And you have to go for a year, you have to leave your family, and you're really going to a country that's still at war, right? Because there was no, you're in an armistice with North Korea. And it's a war footing type environment. And so back in the day, they would put everybody that was going to Kunsan for their year, right? When you land, your clock starts ticking. They're
Yeah.
going to Kunsan for their year, and they would fly them on a plane, and they would land at Kunsan, right? And then off you'd get. So you left your family at home, everything you know at home, and for the next year, this is it. Well, when you're on that base and that plane is coming, no matter what's going on the base, they make an announcement over the loudspeaker, the loudspeaker that they would use for emergencies. They make an announcement that it was called the Freedom Bird, that the Freedom Bird or the rotator will be landing in 15 minutes. And everybody on that base stops, goes out to the flight line, makes a big, long, welcoming
Oh,
line,
that's so cool.
welcomes everybody off of the plane. They take you all to the club, the place where all the social events are. They take everybody to the club. And the first 30 minutes are very intense. It's a mission briefing about why they're there, what's going on in Korea, and everything. And the commander does that. And then behind you in the club, they have that screen, the curtains pulled. So the club's kind of split in half. And when they're done and they say, so welcome to the Wolf Pack is what it's called. They say, welcome to the Wolf Pack. And they open that screen and there's a fully laid out steak dinner, baked potatoes, the whole shooting match, and they feed you right there. And automatically, the person that sponsors you and people from your organization, they break you up into the club, and now you're down to your lesser organization, and everything stops. Now you tell me
Yeah.
if you feel a little bit better about having to leave everybody at home for a year.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's been going on for 50 years, Inga,
Wow.
at that place.
And
That is
you feel supported,
amazing.
right? I mean, you get to
Yeah.
see, I mean, it can be overwhelming, but you at least feel the attention's on you, support of you. I mean, this is a no-brainer. I mean, that's why you just sit there. When
Yeah.
I sit there still amazed, I just look at some of these organizations and go, "Dubby, what is wrong with you people? This is not difficult." I mean,
Well, and
really?
Jan, talk to, better job fit and what you do about this churn, right? So you have a hole, you have anxiety to fill the hole, you've got to go through this whole process to get the hole filled. And what do you say to the employee? We are so glad you're here because we've got this hole to fill, and you shove them in the hole. And that's it.
Yeah, and then you forget about them because they're in a
Yeah,
hole. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly,
I
right?
actually had a conversation with a recruiter, which I thought, or yeah, a recruiting agency here in my network. And it was so interesting what he was saying, what alluding to what you just said, Dave, about filling the hole and then forgetting about the person. He said he has in-depth conversation with the hiring manager about the company culture, and if he discovers there's a toxic culture and there, or even not a culture where they care enough about the people, where they don't celebrate their successes, where they don't celebrate, or have a great onboarding experience and things like that. He is so deliberate about those things before he actually places any of his candidates in those organizations, that he goes so far and says, if I just have the whiff of the culture not really being good enough and they just churn over the staff because people are so unhappy with what's going on in the organization, he said, I'm not going to recommend any of my candidates to these types of organization. And
Wow.
just to that point, so
That's
there is hope.
yeah, no, that's
Right?
pretty
There's a light
awesome.
at the
Yeah,
end of the tunnel.
yeah. And
There's
again,
a
more and
there's
more
a
people we need to, bring more and more of those people into the loop, right? And we all need to start carrying our our flags, right?
did, there's an article that just came out by the CEO of Starbucks, and years ago they were struggling, and it's when Steve Jobs was still alive, and they were together, and I guess the guy spent an inordinate amount of time bitching about his culture in Starbucks, and he was going through stuff,
Yeah.
and I guess Steve Jobs turned around and looked at him and he said, "Fire everybody in your C-suite, fire all of them." And the guy was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, right. I'm going to fire everybody." He said things are starting to turn around, and it wasn't until the last one of those people that Steve Jobs recommended finally went. So he should have done what he said. And this is the thing about leadership. They say it's lonely at the top, and it is. It is. When you're there, it's lonely.
Yeah.
But this culture we're talking about celebrating, it has to permeate through the
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
So if that's your value to celebrate, then everybody has to hold that value. And if they don't, they need to go someplace else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Tough to
it starts from the top, right? Because those are the individuals which setting the tone, setting the expectations, and people follow their lead, right? Because often enough, there are consequences if you don't, right? Or at least
well.
some kind of repercussions.
So Jan, back to your work. How many mid-level managers have asked today, "Why don't you celebrate?" Would tell you that they're not given the time to celebrate. They're not allowed.
well, exactly. I mean, it's siloed. They say, "Oh, well, HR will take care of that." Okay, you, this is again something as simple as this: these silos that are in organizations, C-suite, mid-level management, HR, and then you got the rest of everybody, right? I mean, that's the first very foundational issue, is that you have these silos, right? And to the point that it starts at the top, but it takes time to transition. Do you wipe the slate clean and start over, or are you going to wait and drag it out, and then that cancer is still in the organization? Because that's truly what it is. We're in this revolution of human sustainability, And we've had environmental sustainability for how many years? And people need to now talk about the other three pillars of sustainability: human, social, and economic, because those three are so deeply connected to human sustainability connects all of them. If you don't have human sustainability, those other three pillars
Hmm.
doesn't doesn't stand. So, this what we're talking about today is part of human sustainability. What are we doing to retain our people? What are we doing as individuals to make sure that we're in the right job, that we're working in our strengths and our gifts, living up to our potential? How much accountability do we have, or are we taking just to live up to our own potential? Right? We need to start.
Yeah.
We need to stop expecting somebody to see that in us, because that doesn't happen. To your recruiter's point, right? He's conscious of what he's positioning his candidates in. He's
Yeah.
vetting that and taking that time to vet that. It's not just about put a button seats. So it's taking that old legacy mindset of just get the job done to let's be consciously aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it.
So yeah, Inga, I mean, listening to Jen talk, this is where it takes me. It's almost like auto racing, right? And when you talk about sustainability, in auto racing, they are tinkering with that car every day, every week, every minute, right? The track changes, how they adjust, all those kind of things. With humans, we just put gas in it and push the pedal. Even if
Oh my God, Dave, that is such a
That's
great
right.
analogy. You are
Yeah,
always
it's
that is
don't,
so true. Phil, and then
yeah.
we're not even checking the dang gas tank when we should.
Yeah.
no, and then we yell at people because they're out of gas, because we burnt them completely out, because we haven't done anything to fine tune them, take care of the gears and all the things that make it work. And then when it breaks down, we go, well, they were just they we label them and
Yeah,
we move on from them
it's
like they're
their
a
fault.
commodity, and that's not how that works.
Well,
Yep.
and when
Okay.
you talk about the gas tank, all they do is when it gets low, they just stick a smiley sticker on it, and then just say everything's good.
That's right. On the, on the
Yeah. Okay. So here, a couple of final questions. Excuse me. What do you think is one small thing or a small change everybody can pick up right here and right now, which would facilitate the change of celebrating successes more?
Celebrate the successes of yourself first.
Hmm.
Just like
yeah,
it's what they
yeah.
tell us when we fly a plane, you got to put your oxygen mask on first before helping somebody else. You have to start the practice of your own self-awareness of your successes. Start celebrating your own successes, acknowledging your own successes. Even at the end of the day, did you get everything done on your list? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
and
And sometimes it's just the whoop whoop.
that
That's just
That's
enough,
it. And
right?
then reaching out to others, one person. Dave's really great at this. One person to check on and to ask them about their successes. Right? So, not only celebrating your own, but reach out to one person and ask them about theirs. What do we have to celebrate today?
Mm.
I mean, just simple as that.
See, Jan and I are a good team because we can put the puzzle all together.
Oh yeah.
With five
I write a
sticks.
lot.
If we got five
You're
sticks.
brilliant at tag teaming. Yeah.
I write a lot, Inga, about slowing down to go faster. And I think everybody in their heart of hearts really does want to celebrate, but we have the five excuses why we can't,
Hmm.
and I think it's all BS, because the amount of time that it takes to celebrate is about half the time it takes to get through the coffee line. And if you just took the time that it took to go through the coffee line to celebrate one or two things yourself or somebody else, just think
Yeah.
about that. If you have a coffee bar in an organization, write about this too. If you have a coffee bar in an organization, go sit at the coffee bar and watch how long it takes somebody to go from standing in line, ordering, waiting for their coffee, And then all the BSing that they do when they're, after they get their coffee because they run into somebody that they know. If you took one of those events in the day and spent that on celebrating, that's easy. So you got to slow down to go faster. We slow ourselves down to get coffee. Sometimes we slow ourselves down to eat and to do those kind of things. It's like tinkering with the car. You have to add it to
Yeah.
what you do, and then be committed to it.
It has
Yeah.
to be a value, right, Inga? It has to be a value to you.
It's
You have to
value.
claim it, and it has to mean something to you. We only value things that mean something to us.
I've worked in organizations that have fun as a value, and I've heard employees go, "Yeah, I don't know what value fun is, but I'm not having any right now." That's a powerful value. When you write that down, you better be having
Yeah,
fun.
you better
Oh,
be
yeah.
putting that into the into the daily activity or somehow, right? And that's the thing.
Yeah.
People create those mission statements or value statements, but there's no. So what are the action? You can speak those words. What is the action plan that drives that value system?
Yeah.
Like you got to have actions that back it up.
That's an entire different rabbit hole, Jen, where we're
I
getting
know.
into, right? And if we start discussing value propositions, mission statements, and all of that, I mean, actually, I'm gonna do that as another topic for a podcast conversation because I think there's a lot to say on that point as well. But you're absolutely right. We need to stop and make time because it also invites us to self-reflect, right?
Yeah.
On where I am now. Am I happy? Am I not happy? What can I celebrate? What would I celebrate? Or what would I like to celebrate? And how can I have a bigger impact on others? Because it invites that slowing down, or even stopping for a minute, just invites that kind of reflection. And then we actually have the time to show the care we have for others. So that's my last piece of wisdom for right now anyway. Thank you so much. I think we would have quite a few more stories which would come to mind if we would continue chatting, but I'm afraid we're out of time. But I loved this conversation with you guys, and thank you so much. And speaking of celebrating and other people in the world, whose ever birthday it is today, happy birthday. Thank you for listening to Professionals Unplugged. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And if you'd like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. And if you like to hear even more, check out my website, www.medeaintl.com, for insights, connecting, and coaching. Until then, unplug and look after yourself.